The Trump administration claims to be tough on crime, but there's a devastating contradiction at the heart of their immigration obsession that's making America less safe. While Trump rails about fentanyl being such a dire threat that it justifies sweeping tariffs against Canada, Mexico, and China, his own administration is simultaneously pulling federal agents off drug interdiction duties to chase undocumented workers in Pennsylvania.
Well, let's hope we don't make any more concessions. I mean, we eliminated the digital services tax on the big tech guys that Trump wanted gone. We reduced or got rid of most of our retaliatory tariffs, and yet we came away with him hiking more tariffs in another area. So Trump is a bully. He's acting like a bully. In Canada, let's face it, we can stand up to the bully, but I don't know there's much we can make him do to make him back down completely.
The same political movement that built its base partly on QAnon fantasies about child trafficking is now disbanding the federal teams that actually investigate child traffickers. A damning new Wall Street Journal investigation reveals the staggering scope of how Trump's immigration theater is gutting federal law enforcement to tackle the crimes that actually threaten Americans. The numbers tell a story of a law enforcement system being systematically dismantled in service of anti-immigrant spectacle. A federal team in El Paso that once pursued child traffickers has been disbanded. A Kansas task force focused on stemming the flow of fentanyl has been redirected. Highway checkpoints near the southwest border, some on roads long identified as major drug trafficking routes, have gone unstaffed. Let's pause here to appreciate the sheer absurdity. We're talking about pulling agents off child trafficking cases, the very crimes that Trump's base claims to be most concerned about, so they can arrest people whose biggest crime is working without the right paperwork while actual criminals get a free pass.
But Canada's forestry sector is also reeling. Trump's new duties run as high as 45% on softwood lumber.
Most of our product, about 90% of it, goes into the United States as a market.
John Brink has already laid off some 300 people from his wood products firm in BC. He hopes Carney can get the president to back off.
This isn't just misguided policy, it's a betrayal of everything Trump claimed to stand for. The data reveals the true cost of this misdirected obsession. Federal referrals for prosecution are falling across agencies, according to data compiled by Syracuse University's Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse. The Drug Enforcement Administration referred 10% fewer cases between May and June. The U.S. Marshal Service reported a nearly 13% drop. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives saw a 14% decline. But it gets worse. Child exploitation cases are among those affected. Several current and former agents said investigations that require subpoenas, warrants, or grand jury testimony have been postponed or canceled outright. Informant networks are also fraying. Building trust with sources inside drug gangs or child trafficking rackets takes time in the field, investigators say, time they no longer have. Jason Hauser, a former ICE chief of staff, put it bluntly when he told Congress in May that Border Patrol officers who once specialized in inspecting cargo are being dispatched to states as far away as Pennsylvania to hunt for undocumented workers. Screening, inspection, and interdiction suffer, he said, noting that Customs and Border Protection officers are being used to chase landscapers and line cooks thousands of miles from the nearest border. The scope of this resource diversion is unprecedented. Roughly 20% of FBI agents, 2,840 out of around 13,800, have been diverted to work on immigration enforcement, according to data obtained by the libertarian-oriented Cato Institute. That represents a significantly larger shift in FBI priorities than what happened after the 9/11 terrorism attacks, when 1,234 FBI criminal investigators were reassigned to counterterrorism efforts. The human cost of this misguided priority shift is devastating across American communities.
Canada lifted its retaliatory levies last month.
Well, we believe we've played a long time nice in the sandbox, and with the Section 232s, they're so horrific on our economy or certain sectors of our economy that if this meeting doesn't kind of break the ice on that, I think we're left no other option but to push back, fight back, and go from there.
Ideally, the union wants to see no sector tariffs at all, but they say they need to see those 50% duties on metals drop to at least 15% to feel any relief in the sector, which has already lost 1,000 jobs across the country. In Hamilton, Mayor Andrea Horvath is also looking for some hope for.
Nearly every agent on Baltimore's domestic terrorism squad was reassigned this year to work full-time on immigration enforcement, forcing them to walk away from investigations of a network of violent predators that targets and exploits children online, according to two former FBI officials directly familiar with the matter. Michael Feinberg, a former senior FBI executive, warned that agents aren't out there recruiting sources. They are not maintaining tripwires. They are not able to keep their ear to the ground about what's happening among extremist movements. As a result, the extremists have more latitude to do things that harm our society. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. During Trump's DC crime surge, FBI agents in the nation's capital, whose work usually focuses on financial fraud and public corruption, were spending 2 or 3 nights a week patrolling the streets, the New York Times reported, sidelining their other work. Meanwhile, at the Justice Department, a daily briefing on threats facing the nation has been gutted of its expertise as top national security advisors were reassigned from their posts to focus on sanctuary cities, according to the Washington Post. Even more shocking, U.S. Postal Inspection Service officers, usually tasked with protecting postal employees and preventing drugs and child pornography from being sent through the mail, have been reassigned to a Homeland Security Immigration Task Force, the Washington Post reported. The administration's own executive order reveals the backwards priorities at work. President Trump's executive order protecting the American people against invasion states that the primary mission of Homeland Security Investigations, a division of ICE whose mission includes conducting federal criminal investigations into cases of drug smuggling and human trafficking, should be enforcing laws related to unauthorized entry and unlawful presence of migrants. This represents a fundamental betrayal of public safety. A DHS directive would co-opt personnel and resources from the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the Bureau of Prisons, and the U.S. Marshals Service to assist in immigration enforcement, even against individuals without criminal records. While these agencies have previously collaborated with ICE to target criminal activity, this new directive and related Department of Justice guidance redirects drug and terrorism task forces toward immigration-related efforts. In doing so, the administration is weakening public safety by pulling resources from critical missions, as ATF and DEA work to hold criminal organizations accountable for crimes such as drug trafficking, murder, and firearms offenses. The irony is staggering. While Trump's administration claims to prioritize fighting human trafficking, a key office charged by Congress with coordinating the federal government's work against human trafficking was gutted last Friday, the latest in a string of cuts across different agencies to the government's work on an issue that Republicans have long hailed as a top priority. The cuts at the State Department's Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons decimated a team that worked to combat labor and sex trafficking abroad and helped coordinate domestic efforts across other agencies, including the Departments of Justice, Health and Human Services, and Labor. Martina Vandenberg of the Human Trafficking Legal Center said it perfectly. Every area has taken a hit since the start of the administration. It is distressing to see U.S. anti-trafficking programs decimated by an administration that rode to victory, at least in part, on claims that it would combat human trafficking. The administration's own data contradicts its claims about prioritizing dangerous criminals. The Human Trafficking Legal Center published an analysis of federal data this week showing that visas for victims of human trafficking who cooperate with law enforcement to arrest and prosecute traffickers are being issued at record low levels, despite a growing backlog. Meanwhile, as Jason Hauser, the former ICE chief of staff under President Biden, told the Marshall Project, "It's a good time to be an American-born criminal. When the FBI, DEA, ATF are all doing checkpoints in Little Italy tomorrow, the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the Jeffrey Epsteins, the fentanyl traffickers, they don't quit." The administration tries to defend this misallocation by pointing to arrests, but the reality is different. The Trump administration's immigration enforcement approach is the misguided effort to redirect law enforcement away from stopping violent crime, drug smuggling, and gun trafficking to fulfill mass deportation agenda. Put simply, the Trump administration's actions prioritize immigration enforcement, including toward people with no criminal history, over tackling true public safety threats. This represents a complete abandonment of evidence-based law enforcement. The strategy of the Trump administration is to address crime through immigration enforcement, said David Beer, director of immigration studies at the Cato Institute, a libertarian think tank in Washington. They think they can take care of drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and child trafficking just by deporting people, Beer said. The consequences are predictable and devastating. The number of people charged with federal drug crimes has dropped to its lowest level since at least the late 1990s, Reuters reported this week. Compared with the first months of last year, 24% fewer people this year have been charged with money laundering, a charge often used against suspected drug traffickers, the news agency found, and 10% fewer people were charged with drug crimes overall. As one expert explained to Colorado Public Radio, every FBI agent or ATF agent or DEA agent standing along the perimeter of a scene while ICE knocks on doors is an agent being taken away from other duties. Forcing ATF and DEA to instead prioritize immigration cases undermines their ability to address crises such as drug trafficking and gun violence that threaten Americans' safety and security daily. And these crises will only worsen if federal law enforcement agencies are forced to abandon their core missions to become de facto extensions of ICE. The Trump administration's approach isn't just ineffective, it's actively making America less safe. By pulling thousands of federal agents away from investigating the crimes that actually threaten American communities, child trafficking, drug smuggling, domestic terrorism, and violent crime, Trump is sacrificing public safety on the altar of his immigration obsession. This is what happens when political theater takes precedence over actual law enforcement. While Trump claims to be making America safe again, his policies are doing exactly the opposite. The real criminals, the drug traffickers, the child predators, the violent extremists, are getting a free pass while federal agents chase landscapers and line cooks thousands of miles from any border. It's a betrayal of everything law enforcement is supposed to stand for, and it's making all of us less safe. The question isn't whether Trump's immigration policies are working, it's whether Americans will continue to tolerate having their safety sacrificed for political theater. The evidence is clear. Trump's obsession with immigration is gutting the very law enforcement capabilities that actually protect American communities. And the longer this continues, the more dangerous our communities become.